Maybe I should scroll to the right page. Where am I? What am I doing? Nah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles, the podcast where we reread our favorite books and chat about them. I'm your host, Allison, and without further ado, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope your 2024 is off to a good start. Today, we are officially starting our reread of another series. Yay! And it's so exciting! How many times will I say exciting? I don't know, because we'll find out. Today, we are officially starting the Percy Jackson series and the larger Rick Riordan book universe as a whole. So we are including, of course, the original Percy Jackson series, like I said, the Heroes of Olympus series, the Kane Chronicles, Magnus Chase, Trials of Apollo, also not to mention Sun and the Star, and a bunch of short stories and novellas that have come out over the years. Needless to say, we will be living in this universe for quite some time, and I'm more than okay with that. I'm not gonna, if I can speak for myself. I mean, it took us like a year and a half to get through the Hunger Games series, so yeah, we're gonna be here for like 50 years, but it's fine. It's fine. I am okay with being an unofficial Percy Jackson podcast. I mean, I purposely, when I got the logo done for this podcast, wanted a Triton in there for a reason, so here we are. And guys, if you thought the Hunger Games is a core part of my personality, I can't talk. If you thought the Hunger Games is a core part of my personality, you have no idea. Like, I don't know. I'm convinced that, books, shows we watched around 10 to 13, like that age range, it becomes a part of us in a way that nothing else can. I read the Percy Jackson for the first time when I was 12, so, I was the same age as Percy in the first book when I read it for the first time, so that was really cool. And by the time Blood of Olympus came out, I was 17, and I think Percy was 17 by then, or he was about to turn 17. I can't exactly remember what date it was when the events of Blood of Olympus ended, but it was in August, and he was about to turn 17 at least. So yeah, we were the same. So yeah, I grew up with Percy, and when The Hidden Oracle came out, Percy was in his last year of high school trying to get into college, and so was I, because it came out in May 2016, and I was graduating high school that year, so damn. I've just realized I am now closer to my 10-year high school graduation. Holy shit, guys, I'm getting old. Anyway, so yeah, I've grown up alongside Percy, Grover, and Annabeth, and I'm so excited there are new fans that get to grow up with the show, and oh my gods, guys, I love the show so much. I love it. And I know it sounds silly, but watching the show is so healing, because for years all we had were those shitty movies. Okay, they're not on their own, not that bad of movies actually, but in terms of adaptation from Percy Jackson, they sucked. I will maybe do an episode talking about that, and I will need alcohol to do so. Anyway, I was 12 when that movie came out, so, I should have been the same age as the characters on the screen, but, I sit down in the theater to watch it with my dad, and they are in high school, played by 20-something-year-old actors, so needless to say, I was disappointed. but it's all good. We get the show now. Everything is right in the universe. But anyway, we are talking about the books now, today. And I did consider going in release order, since that's usually the order I would go in the past whenever I did a reread of books. But I've never done chronological order with the books. So here we are, first time for everything. So we will be going in the timeline order that is on, the Riordan Wiki fandom page. I'll be honest, I thought The Lightning Thief was going to be first, but I completely forgot about this novella, so this is the first one. Today we are talking about the Diary of Luke Castellan. It's a story from the novella collection called The Demigod Diaries. This came out on August 14th, 2012, released between The Lost Hero and The Son of Neptune. I feel like I may have been in Pennsylvania visiting family when this novella collection came out. I could be wrong, but I have a distinct memory of sitting in the back seat of their car reading this book. It also could have been a reread, but, the world may never know. Anyway, this collection was a great holdover between the two Heroes of Olympus books, because I was dying to see what would happen to Percy at the Roman camp, because if you didn't know, spoiler alert, this is a reread podcast, guys. I am very liable to spoil many things. I'm going to do my best not to say too much of what happens in later books in this universe, Trials of Apollo, but in terms of the original series and even Heroes of Olympus, I am very liable to drop spoilers. So, and I only put that out there because I know there are new fans discovering this fandom with the show. So, fair warning, everyone. Where was I? Oh, right. So, if you didn't know, The Lost Hero ends with the revelation that Percy, who's been missing this entire book, is at the Roman demigod camp. And I just I need to know now. I need to see where Percy's been this whole time. So this novella collection was a good holdover for me. Little did I know that The Lost Hero would not be the worst place for Rick to leave off on a book. God damn it. Anyway, so at the beginning of this collection, Rick wrote a nice little intro note talking about each of the stories that were written in the book, and I really love these notes because he always ends it with his title being the Scribe of Camp Half-Blood, just making the universe feel more alive, feel more interactive, and it's great. But anyway, let me just read the little note he said in his intro. Okay, so it says, "We'll begin with the Diary of Luke Castellan. Over the years, many readers and campers at Camp Half-Blood have asked me to tell the story of Luke's early days, adventuring with Thalia and Annabeth before they arrived at camp. I have been reluctant to do this, as neither Annabeth nor Thalia likes to talk about those times. The only information I have is recorded in Luke's own handwriting, in his original diary given to me by Chiron. I think it's time, though, to share a little of Luke's story. It may help us understand what went wrong for such a promising young demigod. In this excerpt, you will find out how Thalia and Luke arrived in Richmond, Virginia, chasing a magic goat, and how they were almost destroyed in a house of horrors, and how they met a young girl named Annabeth." Oh, he also mentions that the book includes a map of said mansion where this story will take place. So that's cool. And, exactly what he says. We get to hear a part of Luke's diary, get inside his head a little bit. So that's cool. So with that being said, let's get into the story. Okay, so the story opens with Luke kind of introducing himself, because this is the first time he's writing an entry in this diary, and he says, "My name's Luke," and he doesn't think he'll be able to keep up with the diary since his life is crazy, and then he ends this part with, "I should probably start with the magic goat," so kind of a classic Rick Riordan line, and there's a page break. And it opens with, "For 3 days, Thalia and I had been following the goat across Virginia. Again, classic Rick Riordan line. So we meet a young Thalia and Luke, and they're chasing a goat that Thalia thinks is a sign from her father Zeus. And yes, guys, I say Thalia, not Talia, because when I reading, that's how I pronounce her name for years. And plus, in the audiobook, they say Thalia. In the show, they're saying Thalia. So gosh darn it, it's Thalia, guys. Anyway, Luke is skeptical about chasing said magic goat, but he trusts Thalia since at this point they've been traveling together for a while now and have saved each other's lives more than once. That tends to bond people quickly, I'd imagine. We then get some quick exposition about how Luke and Thalia are demigods, half mortal, half god. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know what a demigod is by now. And we get our first chronological reminder that being a demigod sucks and that they are monster magnets. But despite all those warnings repeatedly throughout the series, that never stopped us from debating with our friends who our godly parent would be and fantasizing about spending summers at Camp Half-Blood. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, we also get a really interesting line from Luke on page 8 in my copy. So it says, quote, Thalia and I spent all our time running for our lives. Our super powerful parents don't even talk to us, much less help us. Why? If I tried to explain that, I'd fill up this whole diary. So I'm going to move on. And unquote. So right off the bat, we get Luke's resentment toward the gods almost instantly. And this isn't so different from Percy's own thoughts about the gods and how they treat their children after he learns that, his dad's a god. Because one of the most fascinating things that just goes on throughout the original series is how Percy and Luke are foils to each other. And maybe more than that, in a lot of ways, they are the same person. They're cut from the same, I forget how the saying goes, mold from the same clay. I don't know. Anyway, it'll hit me later when I'm editing what the saying is. But yeah, they're the same person, and we'll get more into all of that as we read the series. But Percy did have the potential to turn out like Luke, except that he had a very different circumstances. One of if not the biggest theme throughout all of the Camp Half-Blood books is how the system is broken, how the gods are deadbeat parents and often treat those considered, beneath them like shit. And so it's interesting that the first story we get chronologically in this world is from Luke's point of view, since he's a menace all throughout the original series, but also a menace with a point. Then again, he is, spoiler alert, technically the hero of the first great prophecy we get, so maybe it makes sense to hear from him at first. I don't know if Rick did this on purpose. He could go back and write another story earlier in the timeline from someone else's point of view, but as of right now, it is really cool that in timeline order, the first story is told from the person that the original great prophecy is about. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. Where were we? Right, magic goat popping up in several places. They keep chasing it because Thalia has a feeling it's important. So now they're in Richmond, Virginia, passing through multiple neighborhoods, and Luke reflects what it would be like to, live in one of those homes with a normal family and not, being chased by monsters. And once again, reminding us being a demigod sucks, but we didn't listen when we read these books. Also, Luke mentions that he was 9 when he ran away from home. I forgot he was that young. Obviously not as young as Annabeth, but still 9 years old. Damn. And he only recently met Thalia. Luke's 14 now, so he was on his own for quite a bit. Anyway, so Luke and Thalia, they spot the goat again, and this is when Thalia reveals that the goat actually has a name. Almathea, I think that's how you say it. Turns out she's immortal, and she's the goat that took care of Zeus when he was a baby after his mother, hid him from his father so that, Kronos wouldn't eat him like he did the rest of the kids, like you do. But Thalia is also really nervous because Amalthea can either be a guide or a warning from Zeus, because last time she saw the goat was in Los Angeles after she ran away, and it was the same night she met Luke. But she met him outside of a dragon cave, so she got danger and a good thing out of it. So the goat, stops disappearing now. So Thalia is pretty sure that they are where they need to be. So she approaches the goat. Also, side note, Amalthea is hanging out under the statue of Robert E. Lee. And to quote Luke, I didn't know much about history, but I was pretty sure Lee was a general who lost a war. That didn't strike me as a good omen. Yes, Luke, you are correct. Lee did lose a war, and let's just say it's a very good thing that he did. Anyway, Thalia is now talking to the goat, trying to figure out what she wants. And another side note, Luke also notices that the goat has in the area where the milk comes out, there are options for all kinds of fountain drinks like Pepsi, so that's cool. And also confirms that Luke is definitely a demigod with ADHD for noticing that. I won't explain any further. Anyway, so the Robert E. Lee statue starts moving. Never a good sign. And this is our first time meeting an I can't say this word. Automaton. The good news is that we're brushing past my horrible pronunciation, guys. The good news is that this one isn't aggressive, doesn't want to fight them. It just points into a direction, and the two follow. First big mistake, kids. Never listen to a statue of Robert E. Lee. Luke, you were correct when you called him a bad omen. And you're very right to feel wary right now. Also, the goat just randomly vanishes into thin air, like you do. And also, does Luke have a crush on Thalia, guys, or is it like she has him wrapped around her finger because he sees her as a sister? Am I dumb? I could just be dumb, guys. Because this went right over my head as a kid. Hold on, it's on page 15. Yeah, so right here, Thalia says that Amalthea leads me to good things. The last time she appeared, she led me to you. The compliment warmed me like a cup of hot chocolate. I'm a sucker that way. Thalia can flash those blue eyes, give me one kind word, and she can get me to do pretty much whatever. But I couldn't help wondering, back in Charleston, had the goat led her to me, or simply led her to a dragon's cave? Anyway, so, yeah, that moment happens, and then, the scene, before the page break, the scene ends with Luke saying, creepy mansion, here we come. So with that, I think I'll take a little bit of a break now. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. Hope you had a good break. So we're creepy mansion, right? So by the way, the door knocker looks like Medusa's face, which naturally doesn't make our heroes feel great. By the way, we don't have time to talk about it here, but holy shit, I can't wait to talk about Medusa in the TV series. But anyway, considering what Thalia gets by the end of this ordeal, I guess the Medusa door knocker is kind of foreshadowing. And speaking of the door, they can't get it open, so Thalia asks Luke to do his thing, and turns out Luke's thing is that he can crack locks, which checks out for a son of Hermes. But Luke also resents this particular talent he inherited because, one of Hermes' things is being the god of thieves. And to quote Luke, Hermes has stolen things like, Apollo's cattle, women, good ideas, wallets, my mom's sanity, and my chance at a decent life. Sorry, did that sound bitter? Yeah. Yeah, should we start a Luke red flag counter at this point? Then again, we might break it. Anyway, back to cool lock-picking superpower. And Thalia agrees because she has seen this done multiple times and is still impressed by it. And first thing they see when they get inside is an old-fashioned ballroom. And guys, if I somehow suddenly become very wealthy one day, or just bamboozle a millionaire into marrying me or something. I am totally getting a house with a ballroom. I will loosely make sure it looks like Beauty and the Beast, and I will absolutely host Jane Austen themed balls. Do I have any idea how to ballroom dance? Nope, that's not important. Anyway, focus, Allison. Back to the story, or we're gonna be here forever. Giant creepy mansion, that would definitely be seen in either a horror movie or episode of Scooby-Doo, and the front door slams shut on them, and not even Luke can open it again, so they're low-key trapped, and also the curtains will attack you if you try to go through the window, as Thalia finds out and loses her spear to said curtain because spear is now dripping in acid, so we're doing great. They look for a way out down the hallways, which all have glowing red eyes, so stairs are looking pretty good. And a very ominous, voice confirms the idea and is like, hey, yo, this way, except he doesn't say yo. Stop listening to ominous things. Also, the description of the voice is, sounding sad, and I quote, as if he were given directions to a funeral that doesn't help at all. Then again, they do have limited options, so, up the stairs they go. And they continue to follow the ominously sad man's voice, and they go down the hall to the last door on the left. This is why I would not make a good demigod, y'all. Because Sally and Luke, they follow the voice because the man is sad, sounds like he needs help, and, they're going to be heroes. Fucking demigods. Well-intentions mixed with, questionable survival instincts at times. Anyway, they get to their destination. The door opened way too easily, and just like that, just like the front door, this door slammed shut on its own, but at least the creatures that were chasing them can't get to them now, so yay. And they do find the owner of the sad/ominous voice, and the first thing he does is say that he's sorry, and the description of the man isn't great. So towards the bottom, page 21, it says he wore snakeskin boots and a molten green and brown suit that might have been made from the same material. He was tall and gaunt with spiky gray hair, almost as wild as Thalia's. He looked like a very old, sickly, fashionably dressed Einstein. Okay, actually, that's not as bad as I remembered, but still. Snakeskin's always creepy to me. And also, the room he's around, almost looks like a normal studio apartment, apart from the side of the room where the monsters are behind bars, and there are bones and pieces of armor littered everywhere. Oh, and the monster in the cage has the old man's voice, so very horrifying ventriloquist act. So with his voice coming out of the monster in the cage, the man introduces himself as Halcyon Green. I think I said that right. And he says, I'm terribly sorry, but you are in the cage. You've been lured here to die. Definitely not making the list of top 10 ways to greet a guest. Naturally, Luke points his weapon and demands answers. By the way, guys, I keep forgetting to mention his weapon is a golf club because he lost his sword at a different monster attack. So we're doing great. Hal goes on to explain that the creatures in the cage is a Lucrota. I'm again mispronouncing it, guys, most likely. But the Lucrota can imitate human voices, and it's how it catches its prey. So this is a little confusing. Anyway, dude in snakeskin suit is, like he said, is Halcyon Green, though I'm calling him Hal through the rest of the episode because he literally tells Luke and Thalia to call him Hal a few moments later. So yeah, and he's a son of Apollo, which is a shock to Luke and Thalia because the guy looks like he's in his 60s, and demigods don't tend to have long lifespans, so them making it to adulthood is a fucking miracle. And again, another thing we will see pop up over and over again throughout the series. Something is very wrong with your world and your system when it's rare for your children to live long lives, just saying. Then Hal, with his voice still coming out of the monster and still very much creepy, explains, like, what the fuck is going on, how the fuck he got here. So, Hal is a demigod, like I said, son of Apollo, and wouldn't you know it, he can see the future, which, higher chance of that happening if your father is the god of prophecies, which, of course, leads to not great things for Hal. The gods, of course, don't like it when mortals meddle with fate, go blabbing about the future to other mortals, changing things like you do. Hal broke that rule by warning a young girl about a fatal accident that was going to kill her. Good news, the girl survived and did not get into said accident. Bad news, Apollo was pissed. He took away Hal's voice, sent Luke sent the monster to guard him, have the monster be linked to his thoughts and literally speak for him. So basically, Hal is forever locked in his childhood home and used as bait to lure other demigods into a trap. Also, on top of that, Hal is forced to wear a suit made out of the skin of Python, Apollo's old enemy who used to guard the Oracle of Delphi. He'll become a problem later, as a reminder to Hal that he is not an oracle, and his voice will be forever used to lure demigods to their doom. Holy shit, this is a kid's book. Maybe that should be a counter. What the fuck, Rick? This is a kid's book. Ding! Anyway, Luke is pissed, just like the rest of us reading the book, because what the fuck? And he encourages Hal to fight back. He and Thalia are ready to take on the monsters like you do, but Hal isn't so optimistic because of how many times he has seen this situation play out, and every time the demigods end up dying. And to make matters worse, no metal can kill the monsters, not even celestial bronze, which is our go-to metal for killing monsters, by the way. Hal even demonstrates by using a dagger on the monster in the cage, and it doesn't even scratch it. So, yeah, yikes. Luke and Thalia are rightfully pissed because it sounds like Hal is giving up on them, but I also can't help but feel a little sorry for Hal because, he tried to do something good, got this terrible curse, and right now the only company he gets are the demigods lured to their deaths. And all he gets out of it are the rations left over after the monsters eat said demigods. Again, super dark. What the fuck, Rick? And also the monsters like to eat at sundown, which, according to Hal, will be at 7:03. It's currently 10:34 in the morning, so they've got time to kill at least. Also, Hal is able to at least send the monsters away to another room because there's a door on the other side of the cell, and he continues communicating with them by typing on his computer, so we at least don't get any more creepy ventriloquism. They pace the room, look at Hal's book collection, and even look at his computer, which isn't very helpful. And this is also the first time we get the chronological exposition about how demigods and technology do not mix, that if a demigod uses a cell phone or the internet, it tends to attract monsters. Which is a great way to, as a writer, get around the plot holes that are like, well, why didn't they so-and-so just use their phone to call for help? So, nice one, Rick. Thalia is, understandably very frustrated and can't understand why Almathea led her there, and even ponders if she led other demigods to the mansion too. Hal is surprised to hear about the goat after Luke explains what had been happening, and Hal tells us that the other demigods had been led to the house because they were after the treasure inside, and they never talked about a goat. Hal shows them his walk-in closet, which little jealous of, low-key. Though, again, it's filled with stuff from the dead demigods, so totally not creepy. Moves his stuff around and shows them a safe that he cannot open, and the safe has never been opened, I don't think. Mainly because there's a curse on the lock and it's really hard to pass. But Thalia is convinced that this must be a sign from her father that this is the reason Almathea has led them to this house. Luke, being Luke, is more skeptical. And He's pretty sure he can bypass the curse no problem because, Hermes kid powers. But he's unsure about the second trap that ends with a poison. Luke can try to disable it, but if he fails, the whole apartment will fill with gas and they all die. So, no pressure. Also, going back to what I was saying earlier, yeah, Luke definitely has a crush on Thalia, and she probably did reciprocate some feelings, because once Luke successfully removes the poison, Thalia kisses him on the cheek, and on page 34, and I quote, "Thalia kissed me on the cheek, which she probably shouldn't have done while I was holding a tube of deadly poison." Did that make the risk worth it? Yeah, pretty much. That is a boy with a crush. Spoiler alert, it won't end well for either of them. Anyway, Thalia finds a silver bracelet inside. She's feeling anticlimactic about the whole thing, but Hal is freaking out in a way that means he's really excited. He even leads them back to the main room so he can type on his computer, and he tells them that Apollo told him that his curse would end when the treasure in the safe had been claimed. But of course, not that simple. He still doesn't have his voice back. Luke tells Hal to look into the future to see what happens, and Hal's naturally not eager to do so given what happened the last time he looked ahead to help someone. And since metals can't be used to kill the monsters, they're going to have to get creative. So Luke hops onto the computer, hoping for a divine Google search, as he puts it, since, part of Hermes' powers is communication. Even mutters a prayer to Hermes, and by prayer, I mean he says, "Show me there's an upside to being your son." But still, that's huge for Luke. And just like all of us at some point when trying to find very niche piece of information, it's hard using Google to find it. Not too much knowledge about L'air Crotte online. I should have looked up how to pronounce this earlier, guys. I'm so sorry. Anyway, Thalia still isn't having luck with the bracelet. Hal eventually does give in and decides to read a future. First, he reads Thalia's. Good news, she's destined to survive today, so yay. Bad news, it is that, in the future, she's destined to sacrifice herself for her friends. And after that, things are weird, because Hal describes years of solitude, alive yet sleeping, but she'll at least find her family someday. This, of course, makes no sense to Thalia, and wouldn't make sense to anyone reading these without hindsight of the series, because, the whole dying and turning into a tree thing for a few years, that'll happen. Not exactly a common thing most people would expect to happen to them. Thalia is understandably frustrated and confused by what Hal has just told her, and Hal also pushed a major button by bringing up her family, because Thalia is insisting that there's no way she's going back to her mom, because her mom wasn't exactly a great parent. Spoiler alert. Thalia will never get the chance to reconnect with her mom, since her mom, after the whole tree journey thing, her mom will die in a car accident. So yeah, and Hal also explicitly says, "I wasn't talking about your mother." Thalia is, of course, denying everything Hal is saying his skills are rusty, can't be true, but Luke knows she's lying, though he doesn't push it, since they got more pressing stuff going on, and he also respects her enough not to push. But since this book came out after The Lost Hero, we all know she's talking about Jason, which we'll get to in like 10 years when we finally get to Heroes of Olympus. God, I can't wait. I love Heroes of Olympus. Anyway, Luke asks Hal if the bracelet was in his vision, since Thalia is supposed to survive, but Hal doesn't see anything about the bracelet. However, he does think that Almathea the goat, I can't talk, guys, and how Zeus slew her and used her to make his shield Aegeus. Obviously, she can come back to life like a lot of creatures in this universe do. and also later on the shield, Athena puts Medusa's head on it. More on that later. Time for Hal to read Luke's future, which I'm sure is nothing but happy times and no emotional turmoil whatsoever, right? Right? Because, Hal jumping away in terror after reading into Luke's future surely means that he was just so shocked seeing that Luke, a demigod, had such a peaceful future, right? Right? God damn, why do I like these books? Anyway, Hal says it's hard to get a good reading on Luke's future. He saw a sacrifice, a choice, and a betrayal, but he doesn't elaborate further. Thalia thinks this means that someone is going to betray Luke, because obviously Luke would never betray anyone. Who's gonna tell her, guys? Oh god. Also, pause real quick. Have you guys been seeing, because I haven't seen a lot, but I'm starting to see all the new fans reacting to Luke, and oh no, those poor sweet summer children, because they all love him and they think he and Percy are going to be lifelong friends. For those on TikTok, you know that trend where it's like it takes from the Taylor Swift song, like, in a world of boys, he's a gentleman, that part. They're all casting Luke as the gentleman. I'm like, oh, you are going to be crushed when this series finale comes out. Oh, you all are not going to be okay. Also, it's also really fascinating to see people's theories who have never read the books and are watching the show, and this is their first time getting the story of Percy Jackson. And it's really interesting to see some people's theories. And this one account, I saw their theory that they believe that Annabeth will do something to betray Percy, but Annabeth won't be the betrayer that's mentioned in the prophecy Percy gets. No, this guy was saying that he thinks Grover will be the betrayer, and that is so wrong. And the guy believes that Luke and Percy are destined to be lifelong friends. He thinks that Luke, Percy, and Clarice will become like a trio, and even Luke and Clarice might end up dating. And I'm like, oh, so much is wrong. This poor guy. Oh, he's going to be crushed at the end of this. Oh, the poor guy. Anyway, also there's a weird amount of Sally Jackson hate coming out suddenly. What the fuck? Yeah. Anyway, I'm not getting into it because I don't feel like getting angry right now, but what the fuck, guys? Okay, so speaking of being angry, Thalia snaps at Hal, calls him a coward, and for just a second, Luke thinks Hal might fight back until Luke steps in, because Hal is now high-key terrified of Luke, because, boy has a very dark future ahead of him. But enough about that. Luke has an idea. They're gonna fight the monsters by making Greek fire, basically very deadly fire that is hard to control, and Luke realizes that they have all the ingredients that they need to make this magical deadly fire. After he combs through some of Hal's ancient books and throughout the apartment, just with stuff that's been left over all the years by all the dead demigods, they have all the ingredients that they need. And Luke, in writing, mentions that he won't write down the recipe because, this is a diary, and just on the off chance someone sees it, he doesn't want to be responsible for the consequences of what could happen if the knowledge of how to make Greek fire ends up in the wrong hands. Luke being responsible. Things will change. Oh, how things will change. Anyway, something important that they need, that we readers get to know about, is a catalyst. And the best catalyst they have will be lightning. So good thing they have a child of Zeus handy, because they generally can be relied on to summon it. And Thalia needs to summon it to hit the electrical wiring in the house and just, might set the whole place on fire, but she'll probably end up doing it anyway because Greek fire is deadly. Anyway, so they make the stuff. Thalia tells the boys to step back in case the lightning is out of control and she explodes or something. Hal leads Luke into the closet and writes down what he wants to say. Hal wants Luke to take his diary because he hopes that his notes about the future could help Luke on his journey. And I have to read this interaction on page 48, guys. I just have to. It's too good. His pen hovered over the page for a long time. I think I finally understand why I was cursed, he wrote. Apollo was right. Sometimes the future really is better left a mystery. Hal, your father was a jerk. You didn't deserve... Hal tapped the page insistently. He scribbled, just promise me you'll keep up with this diary. If I'd started recording my thoughts earlier in my life, I might have avoided some stupid mistakes. And one more thing. He set the pen in his diary and unclipped the celestial bronze dagger from his belt. He offered it to me. I can't, I told him. I mean, I appreciate it, but I'm more of a sword guy. And besides, you're coming with us. You'll need that weapon. He shook his head and put the dagger into my hands. He returned to writing. That blade was a gift from the girl I saved. She promised me it would always protect its owner. Hal took a shaky breath. He must have known how bitterly ironic that promise sounded, given his curse. He wrote, a dagger doesn't have the power or reach of a sword, but it can be an excellent weapon in the right hands. I'll feel better knowing you have it. He met my eyes, and I finally understood what he was planning. Don't, I say. We can all make it out. Hal pursed his lips. He wrote, we both know that's impossible. I can communicate with the Luke Crote, and I am the logical choice for bait. You and Thalia wait in the closet. I'll lure the monsters into the bathroom. I'll buy you a few seconds to reach the exit panel before I set off the explosion. It's the only way you'll have time. No, I said, but his expression was grim and determined. He didn't look like a cowardly old man anymore. He looked like a demigod, ready to go out fighting. I couldn't believe he was offering to sacrifice his life for 2 kids he'd just met, especially after he'd suffered for so many years. And yet, I didn't need a pen and paper to see what he was thinking. This was his chance at redemption. He would do one last heroic thing, and his curse would end today, just as Apollo had foreseen. He scribbled something and handed me the diary. The last word read, promise. I'm fine. Yeah, the word promise definitely. The word promise definitely won't be important later on, guys. I'm fine. Yeah, anyway, yeah, that'll be important later. And Thalia summoned the lightning. She has a jar of Greek fire, so yay. And the bars have lifted, so it's dinner time for the monsters. So perfect time for a break, right? Yeah, I thought so. And we're back. So hey, things are gonna happen, guys. Okay, Hal takes the jar of Greek fire because, he's gonna sacrifice himself. Poor Hal. Luke and Thalia hide in the closet, and while they're hiding, Howl. Oh god, apparently I have Howl's Moving Castle in the brain, guys. Anyway, Hal then he lures the monsters to the bathroom, saying like, "Hey guys, I got your dinner trapped in the bathroom," and of course the monsters fall for it. Luke and Thalia use that time to make a break for the enclosure. One of the monsters nearly gets Luke, but he still makes it through the chute with Thalia, and we hear Hal give a final battle cry, and he says, "For Apollo," and I kind of have complicated feelings about Hal, still shouting for making his final battle cry in Apollo's name, seeing as Apollo was the whole reason all this shit's happening in the first place, but whatever. Then there's an explosion. Anyway, Luke and Thalia, R.I.P. Hal. I hope he gets a chance at Elysium. But anyway, Luke and Thalia make it into the hallway, which is on fire. Of course, one of the monsters survived and followed them down the chute, and when they're pinned down, Luke remembers about the shield Aegeus. Thalia understands what he means, taps on the bracelet, yells Aegeus, and thank goodness turns into a shield, and it's pretty much a perfect replica of the original. Thankfully, the Medusa head doesn't turn people to stone, just scare them enough to hold them in place for a minute. And luckily, that fear works on this monster because it backs up into one of the Death Curtain monsters. Luke and Thalia run for the door. Another explosion goes off. Later, Luke isn't sure how they got out. He just assumes that the shockwave from the explosion opened the front door for them. Feels like some MCU survival bullshit, but I'll let it slide. Luke is understandably a bit disoriented. I can't talk, guys. And had the unfortunate luck of looking at the shield and screamed and cowered behind the Robert E. Lee statue. Pretty comical image to picture. And then the survivor's guilt starts to kick in a little because, they couldn't save Hal. That'll happen a lot in this series, survivor's guilt. Thalia and Luke wander around, not quite sure where they're going. They just, want to get as far away from the mansion as possible. And we get another concerning thought from Luke that kind of puts the ding on the red flag counter. This is on page 56. So Luke thinks to himself, I promise, Hal, I thought, I will learn from your mistakes. If the gods ever treat me that badly, I will fight back. Okay, I know that sounds like crazy talk, but I was feeling bitter and angry. If that makes the dudes up on Mount Olympus unhappy, tough. They can come down here and tell me to my face. That last part really did sound like Percy, because Percy was willing to fight a literal god at 12 years old, so there's that. So Luke and Thalia end up stopping near an old warehouse called Richmond Iron Works. They stop to split a ham sandwich and suddenly sense that they are not alone. And now we get a very important scene, a scene you should already be familiar with if you've read The Last Olympian, but, this was released after The Last Olympian, so this put the scene in a whole new context, because this scene now happens right after that entire ordeal with Hal. And anyway, Thalia and Luke approach some pile of scrap metal. They're both ready for an attack. Luke moves some metal aside, and a little girl in pajamas jumps out at him, armed with a hammer and ready to, hit him on the head like you do. And lucky for him, Luke has good reflexes and stops the blow. And y'all know who it is. It's Annabeth. It's the little 7-year-old Annabeth right after she ran away. I gotta read this. Hold on. It's on page 59. This is too important not to read. Like I said, top page 59 starts with Thalia saying, hey, little girl, she said, sounding more gentle than I'd ever heard. It's all right. We're not going to hurt you. I'm Thalia. This is Luke. Monsters, she wailed. No, I promise. The poor thing wasn't fighting as hard, but she was shivering like crazy and terrified of us. But we know about monsters, I said. We fight them too. I held her more to comfort than restrain now. Eventually she stopped kicking. She felt cold. Her ribs were bony under her flannel pajamas. I wondered how long this little girl had gone without eating. She was even younger than I had been when I ran away. Despite her fear, she looked at me with large gray eyes. They were startlingly gray, beautiful and intelligent. A demigod, no doubt about it. I got the feeling she was powerful, or she would be if she survived. You're like me? She asked, still suspicious, but she sounded a little hopeful too. Yeah, I promise. I hesitated, not sure if she understood what she was, or if she'd ever heard the word demigod. I didn't want to scare her even more. Well, it's hard to explain, but we're monster fighters. Where's your family? The little girl's expression turned hard and angry. Her chin trembled. My family hates me. They don't want me. I ran away. My heart felt like it was cracking into pieces. She had such pain in her voice, familiar pain. I looked at Thalia, and we made a silent decision right there. We would take care of this kid. After what happened with Halk and Green, well, it seemed like fate. We'd watched one demigod die for us. Now we'd found this little girl. It was almost like a second chance. Thalia knelt next to me. She put her hand on the little girl's shoulder. What's your name, kiddo? Annabeth? I couldn't help smiling. I never heard that name before, but it was pretty, and it seemed to fit her. Nice name, I told her. I tell you what, Annabeth, you're pretty fierce. We could use a fighter like you. Her eyes widened. You could? Oh, yeah, I said earnestly. Then a sudden thought struck me. I reached for Hal's dagger and pulled it from my belt. It will protect its owner, Hal had said. He had gotten it from the little girl he had saved. Now fate had given us a chance to save another little girl. How'd you like a real monster-slaying weapon? I asked her. This is celestial bronze. Works a lot better than a hammer. Annabeth took a dagger and studied it in awe. I know, she was 7 years old at most. What was I thinking, giving her a weapon? But she was a demigod. We have to defend ourselves. Hercules was only a baby when he strangled 2 snakes in his cradle. By the time I was 9, I'd fought for my life a dozen times. Annabeth could use a weapon. Knives are only for the bravest and quickest fighters, I told her. My voice caught as I remembered Hal Green and how he died to save us. They don't have the reach or power of a sword, but they're easy to conceal and they can find weak spots in your enemy's armor. It takes a clever warrior to use a knife. I have a feeling you're pretty clever. Annabeth beamed at me, and for that instant all my problems seemed to melt. I felt as if I'd done one right thing. I swore to myself I would never let this girl come to harm. I am clever, she said. Thalia laughed and tousled Annabeth's hair. Just like that, we had a new companion. We better get going, Annabeth, Thalia said. We have a safe house on the James River. We'll get you some clothes and food. Annabeth's smile wavered. For a moment, she got that wild look in her eyes again. You're not going to take me back to my family. Promise? I swallowed the lump out of my throat. Annabeth was so young, but she'd learned a hard lesson, just like Thalia and I had. Our parents had failed us. The gods were harsh and cruel and aloof. Demigods only had each other. I put a hand on Annabeth's shoulder. You're part of our family now, and I promise I'm not going to fail you like our families did. Deal? Deal, she said happily, clutching her new dagger. Thalia picked up her spear. She smiled at me with approval. Now come on, we can't stay put for long. I'm not crying, guys. It's fine. It's fine, because, everything's going to be fine and dandy. The 3 of them are going to be a nice, happy family forever, and nothing is ever going to go wrong ever again. Holy shit. Why did the Greeks have to be known for tragedy? Fuck. So yeah, that happened. Oh, it's gonna suck seeing this go so wrong, because Luke, you're gonna break so many promises. You're gonna just anyway. Annabeth is gonna need so much therapy. Seriously though, is there a god for therapists? Anyway, so yeah, and then page break, and it just ends with Luke wrapping up the diary, kind of, and also reflects on his mom, because he thinks about his mom living in Connecticut, but we'll get into everything that happened with her later on in like 10 years when we get to Last Olympian. But yeah, and it ends with him saying Luke Castellan signing off for now, and it'd be kind of interesting to see if Luke ever did write any more diary entries, because obviously he clearly stopped at some point. I would guess, like, in the months leading up to him leaving Camp Half-Blood, he definitely stopped, because he clearly, like, canonically left it behind, because the scribe of Camp Half-Blood, Rick, got the diary from Chiron. So it'd be interesting if any more stories were published from his point of view, if Luke ever had any thoughts about on his quest, because we know that quest changed him We know Annabeth said he changed. He probably reflected on Hal a lot during that quest. Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, clearly that his interaction with Hal was a very big turning point for Luke, and lots of shit happened. Oh my god. Anyway, so yeah, that's the Diary of Luke Castellan. Everyone, that is our first official story in the Rick Riordan universe. Next time, we will be talking about The Lightning Thief, the book that started it all. Anyway, so we'll be talking about, I think, the first 3 chapters. I haven't quite decided yet, but, we'll find out. We're gonna be we're gonna be talking about Percy, and after we read through The Lightning Thief, I'll probably talk about the shitty movies, and then I'll also talk about the TV series, guys, because by the time we finish rereading the book, the series, all this episodes for season 1 will be out, so that'll be exciting to talk about. Holy shit. Lots of stuff to keep us busy, because 2024 is gonna be an interesting year, to say the least, especially for those of us living in the United States. Anyway, thank you all for listening and sticking with me. Links for socials in the show notes, all that fun stuff. If you have any, thoughts you want to share about past episodes, stuff we'll talk, future episodes, feel free to share them with me. I have no thoughts, because my brain is spent for the night, because I had a full day of work today as well. Woo! But thank you, everyone, again. I hope you all have a great day / night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!